I call this meeting of the Board of Adjustment to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
John Moreland,
Here.
Owen Curley,
Here.
Alexi Gonzalez,
Here.
Jeff Trular, Dan O'Malley,
Here.
Todd Smith,
Here.
Jennifer Williams.
Thank you. The Board of Adjustment meetings are quasi-judicial in nature. All decisions of the board will be based on competent, substantial evidence, including testimony provided in this meeting. Any person who is not an applicant or agent who wishes to speak will need to fill out a speaker's card located on the side table by the door and turn them into the clerk. Each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak on each item once we open the public hearing. Please refrain from speaking from the audience. Applause and cheering will not be allowed. And please silence your cell phones. Moving on, we've got the approval of both August meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve item A under approval of minutes from the August 2nd meeting?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay, meeting minutes approved. And moving on to item B, minutes from August 16th. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting minutes have been approved. Correspondence, aside from any correspondence from individual agenda items, is there any correspondence beyond that?
No, just the stuff that was left on the last week.
Okay. And there is no old business on tonight's agenda, so moving on to new business. Can we call the first case, please?
Board calls BOA 22-100087. Motion to consider 34-337E1C2 for a total side yard of 10 feet and 15 feet minimum to allow for construction of a new single-family dwelling.
Thank you. Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none. I've had none.
I've had none.
None?
None.
Okay. Would the applicant please be sworn in and give your testimony?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
John Atkins, 1888 Foss Lane, Jacksonville Beach. The hardship is that this lot is only 25 feet wide.
Oh, wait. Was he sworn in? Yes, okay, sorry. Thought you were motioning for him to be sworn in. Go ahead.
And we've done a minimal request on this. We're not asking for any lot coverage. We're not asking for anything other than a 5 foot in lieu of 10 foot on the one side. Whereas it could be 5 feet on either side, we're asking for 5 feet on both sides. And we were here last year and heard the neighbors and have made some changes to the plan to take into consideration some of the neighbors' concerns. So with that, I've got a handout here. For the actual design of the house, if I can approach.
Sure, just pass it through the clerk.
What did you change?
What we've changed, we've taken and that's actually what you're looking at now is a floor plan of the house that we're proposing. It's actually a flip, so you'll see in pink where it says flip. I didn't flip the house over. But it's got no windows on the north side where some of the neighbors to the north were worried about privacy in their swimming pool. So there are no windows on the north side of the house. So there will be no privacy concerns at all. We also are, the driveway, we're going to pervious pavers. So we can do a 2-car wide driveway. So we're able to have 2 cars side by side in the driveway. So we won't have any parking issues out on the street.
Can you, you mentioned something about you could do 5 feet on either side, but you're asking for both. Can you clarify what you mean by that?
Very simply, the code states that the side setbacks must be a total of 15 feet with a 5-foot minimum on either side. So we can already go to 5 feet on either side, just not both
Okay,
sides.
gotcha.
It could be 7.5, 7.5, 5 and 10. So we're just asking for a 5 and 5. So we're not technically going any closer to one side than we could by moving the house anyway.
Okay.
So, and this is the bare minimum we can, we're asking for the bare minimum, no lot coverage.
Oh, Commissioner, I got a question. Commissioner, I have a question.
Yes.
Not to doubt your veracity, but if somebody were to hand in a two-story house and then decide that the marketing was challenging on 2 and decided to go with full 35 feet, are they required to do anything other than just tell you they decided to do a 3-story, or are they bound by this in some way?
From previous conversations with the city attorney, basically this board has control over the two-dimensional, so you would provide relief for setbacks. Unless for some reason they had a cantilevered balcony, they could go up to the height limit for the city, which is 35 feet.
So we can't restrict it?
Correct.
It's not in our purview?
Right.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, hearing none, Mr. Atkins, you can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do you have any speaker cards on this item?
Yes, we do. Olga Goldman?
Hi, please get up here.
You'll have to be sworn in by the clerk.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I did.
Please state your name and your address.
Olga Goldman, 1046 Owen Avenue, and 0 Owen Avenue, Jacksonville Beach. So I'm speaking today because the board has met for the matter 19 TAC 100115 and 21 TAC 100059. This meeting in 2019 asked for percentage coverage of the lot and the setback of side yard variances. The meeting in 2021 asked for side yard setback only. So as per the Land Development Code, section 34, TAC 286, which I know all of you guys are very familiar with because you sit on this board, in order for variance to be granted, the petitioner needs to meet the 6 conditions. Special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to this parcel, and I do not agree with that because I also own a 25-foot wide lot that's just around the corner. There's a few members of my neighborhood that also own 25-foot lots that are adjacent to their double lots, which is standard in Jax Beach. So it's not a special condition. There are other many lots like this in Jax Beach, especially in that neighborhood, which is RS2, Zone 4 housing. Special circumstances and conditions do not result from the actions of the applicant. During the meeting last year, it was established by the board. Mr. Curley, Ms. Gonzalez, you guys were both present, and so was Mr. Moreland. And it was a discussion by the board, and it was established by you guys, and agreed that it was purchased by the developer, and they knew that this condition existed. So, granting the variance will not confer upon the applicant any special privileges denied by the comprehensive plan. I believe you will set precedence if this is approved. Same with number 4, same with number 5, or actually number 5. The neighbors have asked the city and the builder to please consider allowing us to purchase this lot because lots 16, 15, and 14, which is 1126, 1120, and 1110, all back onto this lot. The neighbors have asked for the builder to speak to us so we can purchase it so we can either extend all those lots or do something with it. We used to have a butterfly garden and a community garden on that lot. The builder has come in after the first meeting in 2019 and has demolished all of it, which understandably that's his lot. He can do whatever with it, but that was really, it was a slap in the face to the neighborhood. So to go back to number 6, flooding, I have sent videos and pictures of my front yard. the water comes up 2 feet. There are 2 drains in my yard by the city. There's a drain 2 houses down, and there's 4 drains on the corner. So in one block, there are 7 drains. Water has nowhere to go. So I beg you, please don't add more water to that area. So if you guys have a chance, please take a look at that video, because that was not during hurricane season. It was just a regular afternoon storm. And then I will go back, because I have more notes, but I will just say that this will set precedents. I own a lot, and yeah, I'll stop. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I have a question.
I don't believe that it's customary for us to ask questions of the public speakers. I think that's more reserved for
Okay.
Christian. Without Sandy here, I don't know if that's correct, but would it be appropriate to ask a question of a public comment, or is that more just for?
I think the issue becomes, you're granting more time, and at what point are you granting everybody more time?
Right.
It's at the discretion of the chair. I don't think it's illegal, but it's really up to you guys.
All right. Are there any other cards?
Yes, Vicky Messick.
Very good.
Sorry.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Vicki Message, 1855 Riley Street.
Go ahead.
Okay. I bought, we bought our house around the corner in 2015, and we were looking to put a pool in. I looked at my survey, and I have to admit, puffed out my chest a little bit when I saw that we were on a double lot. And then I realized, well, goodness, all my neighbors have built their houses on double lots, and some even have triple lots. So that's not unusual at all. It's to be expected. In fact, there are no single lots. There is no residences built on a single 25-foot wide lot in your neighborhood. A common question you all ask is, what is the hardship? And I'd say in this case, there isn't a hardship. This was an orphan lot that was part of a purchase that OC Builders made several years ago to build 4 houses in our neighborhood on double lots, and this was an orphan, a remainder. Many times people came up before you to grant variances, and they weren't permitted, and OC finally sold the lot to Mr. Atkins last year for $25,000. And I would say that a buildable lot in our neighborhood would be worth conservatively $250K. So he paid about 10%, and it's just, taking a shot to see if he can get this approved. It's speculative. And to Olga's point, he has not entertained or given us the option to purchase that lot. And I would like to say he's welcome to contact me. I have spoken to several neighbors that would be willing to make him whole and take this back from him. Last year, 2 years ago, I'm sorry, when this came before you all, a member of the board had a question in the discussion period and said, should we just go ahead and grant this variance so for the good of the neighborhood so that we can have a more attractive house? So I'm here to answer that. Please do not give him a variance. Let's let the building codes do their job. We were not meant to have a house on a 25-foot wide lot. And I would like you all to stand firm and let those building codes protect us. And if he builds a 10-foot wide house, so be it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other cards?
Sean Dabor.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Sean DeBoer, 1120 Owen Avenue. I'm the middle house at the top of the ship. So you've heard my neighbor's concerns. This is actually the third time I've come up to speak about this. Aside from fire concerns, parking concerns, water concerns, crowding concerns, I think the main concern in the neighborhood is going to be just setting precedent, because in the future, what's to stop builders from demolishing an old home and putting up 2 nothing like this in our development of Coastal Heights, and we want to keep it that way. We feel like it's gonna reduce the property values and not have a, you know, a good, set a good precedent for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rich Tomporowski.
I said I was opposed, but didn't want to speak.
Okay.
Oh, you did, sorry.
And then any letters in your packet?
I'm trying to see, Madam Clerk, are these duplicates or are these new?
Those are all new, those are not included in the packet as far as I know.
Okay. So we have 14 emails in our packages that all oppose this. And now we have a package of new emails that all oppose this.
I would say summarize.
Okay. So first one is from April Mitzel, 1126 Owen Avenue, Jacksonville Beach. She is in opposition of this variance request for a number of reasons, including flooding issues, overcrowding, parking, noise, and the probability it will be used as a vacation rental. The next one is from Tim and Sharon Pickering, 1102 Theodore Avenue. They are in opposition. They say, please don't allow the builder to squeeze a tiny shotgun house in our neighborhood. This will negatively affect our property values and increase flooding. The next one is from Arcade Waltz, no address, in opposition of the variance request. The next one is from Ross Gambrel, 1105 Theodore Avenue, in opposition to the variance request, due to flooding issues, traffic flow, garbage pickup, decrease in property values. The next one is from Tammy Moses, no address, and she opposes the variance request. The next one is from Jennifer O'Neill, no address, in opposition of the variance request. The next one is from Harrison O'Neill, no address, in opposition to the variance request. The next one is from Jack Gamache, also in opposition, no address. The next one is from Sarah O'Neill, in opposition, no address. Bob Bonneberger, who identify themselves as property owners in Jack's Beach, but don't provide an address. They strongly oppose the variance request. The next one is from Mac Horton, no address, opposes the variance request. The next one is from Claire Elliott, no address, in opposition to the variance request. The next one is Susan O'Neill, no address, in opposition. The next one is from Jay Santiski, no address, in opposition. The next one is from James Slazinski, in opposition, no address. The next one is from Lynn Seneker, no address, in opposition. The next one is from Elisa Shaw, 1107 Owen Avenue, in opposition. The next one is from Veronica Woodward, 1125 Theodore Avenue, in opposition to the variance request. The next one is from John Elrod, there's no address, easily discernible, in opposition. The next one is from Kevin and Sharon Phillips, 1066 Ruth Avenue, and they're in opposition. The next one was from Amy Frank, 1125 Owen Avenue, in opposition. The next one was from Tom and Kate Goodry, 2212 Riley Street, in opposition. The next one is from David and Dora Bridson, 1950 Bullion Street, and they are in opposition. The next one is from a speaker that we heard, Olga Goldman, still in opposition. And the next one is from Kim Shine at 1009 Ruth Avenue, and she's in opposition. The next one is from Joshua Kalita, no address given, on Nolan Avenue, in opposition. The next one is from Mary Nicole, Beth and Barry Nicole, and they don't have an address and they're in opposition. The next one is from Ivan and Ann Richter, 2030 Orange Street, and they're in opposition. Ursula Elrod. Owen, Orange Street, different Orange Street, 2030 Orange Street. Ursula Elrod, 1781 Orange Street, they are in opposition. Leslie McMahon, 110 Owen Avenue, and she is in opposition. The last one is from Katie Kimball, no address, 2251 Riley Street, and she is in opposition.
Mr. Atkins, would you like to come back and address any of the comments made?
Yes. Got one more handout. I'd like to address some of the concerns that we heard during the oral testimony and also the emails that were part of the packet. And for the record, no one has approached me about selling this property. Period. I want everyone here to be clear on that. So that was just patently not true. May have been the old owner, but it was not me. And all of my information is on that packet. Some of the neighbors concerned about flooding. We're at 35% lot coverage. We're not asking for any additional lot coverage, whether it's one lot or 50 lots. We heard that Ms. May set a precedence. This is the only orphaned lot in the neighborhood. There are no more. There are other ones that are attached to other properties, but it's very clear in the code that the applicant cannot cause the hardship. And by splitting off a lot from an adjacent 2 or 3 lots, you are causing your own hardship. This was not done. This was done years and years ago. This lot was orphaned years ago. Parking. We're going to provide 2 parking spaces in the driveway, in addition to the one in the garage. The thing about the fire hazard, about the closest, this being close to the property line being about fire hazard, was ironic. This house will be further away from any other structure than any other house on that block. The houses to the north will be over 50 feet away from the house. The houses to the south will be at least 35 feet away from the house. So, in proximity to other houses, it's the furthest any of them will be apart. It's just factual. We are asking, we will stipulate to 2 stories. I don't have any, if you put that stipulation on there, if you so find to approve this variance, 2 stories. I don't want to build a 3-story house. There's no need for it in this neighborhood. somebody, in one of the, few of the emails, there were references to a tiny house. This is not a tiny house, it is a narrow house. It's 1,790 square feet. There are many houses on that block that are 12 and 1,300 square feet. This is just not the case. The Privacy Act, we talked about that. Not putting any windows on the north side of the house, so that all the neighbors to the north with their swimming pools will have no one looking at them. We've taken that into consideration. In addition, the staff did recommend approval of this variance. In addition, the main thing I think here, that rightly so, folks are nervous about is property values. We all are. I do this every day. That's what I do. A narrow house doesn't necessarily have to be a cheap house. This will not be a cheap house. The last 6 houses that I sold have been 20 feet wide, and they've sold for right about $1 million. So this will not negatively affect the property values. So while it may be difficult to say yes, after you've heard all of the neighbors' opposition to this will not factually hurt the neighborhood. You know, we've heard this again and again in other places that we've built, and when it's all done, people, oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. So please take that into consideration. Thank you. I'll answer any other questions you have.
Regarding the, so according to the staff report, the proposed lot coverage is 33%.
Well, we're allowed 35 by code, so we don't have to ask for between 33 and 35. It is.
Right. The reason I ask is just to confirm, so that includes the 1,700, or that includes this. What else does that?
And anything that's impervious, driveways, walkways.
So your site plan right now, does that include any sort of backyard paver patio
No.
or anything like that?
There's a stoop out of the back door, just a stoop to step out on. So we purposely kept it under 35%, taking into consideration, water runoff, keeping all the water on site as much as possible, 35% lot coverage. If you'll look at those, the 3 neighbors off to the north who all spoke in opposition, every one of them has approved variance for 42, at least 42%, some as high as 51% lot coverage. So.
When did you buy this lot?
A year ago.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Well, I was here the last 2 times, so is somebody else trying to build on it before you're trying to build on it?
There was someone that came in before, yes, the previous owner, yep. Sure did.
Twice.
I thank you, but we did say at the beginning of the meeting that we do not allow comments from the audience outside of public comment. Any other questions for the applicant? Anybody? Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak at this time? And if so, please fill out a speaker's card before you leave. Yes, sir. You'll still need to be sworn in, and just make sure you fill out a card before you leave.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and your address.
I live at 1105 Theodore Avenue. I have 3 lots that backs up to,
I'm sorry, sir, what is your name?
I'm sorry, Ross Gambrell. I have 3 lots that backs up to this property. When he talks about flipping the house, then I have my master bedroom, 2 windows, floor. Also, I have 2 sliding doors that they can look into if they wish, you know. So, I'm certainly voting against it. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Atkins, would you want to address that comment that was just made?
Just because it directly affects the neighbor on that side. The windows that are on that side of the house, there are only 3 windows in the bathrooms that are high windows. All they are is just to let light in. So the bottom of the window is at 6 feet high, so you can't see out, you can't see in. The only one window that is low is in the 1 bedroom for egress, just because we have to have egress for the 1 bedroom. So again, we really took that into consideration when we had the house design. So,
I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to deny, application number BOA 22-100087. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request fails to meet the standard. Number 2, the special circumstances and condition resulted from the actions of the applicant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
This is the same application that we entertained last year. And while the applicant, I applaud his efforts to try and address the concerns of the community, it is the same issue that we dealt with in this board last year, except now the applicant is offering use descriptions. I'm going to promise to make it 2 stories. I'm going to put these windows here. Those are out of purview of this board. We can't consider use. We can only consider what the variance is that is requested. I think that the applicant knew he was buying a small, undersized, tiny lot, and I feel the same way, that he knew what he was buying, and that these conditions were, he was cognizant of all these conditions and restrictions on this lot when he purchased it.
And I agree with that. I also have distinct memory.
John, can you turn your speaker on?
I agree with what you said. I also have a distinct memory of hearing, I believe, the young woman that spoke earlier say that there were neighbors who would be willing to talk with him about buying the lot, which he said he didn't remember. I have a distinct memory of that. And I think also that one legitimate use of that property that I think is difficult to build on is that he could get a financial gain by donating that to the city for a park or for a community garden. And the other option is, of course, is if people are interested in talking to him about buying it, they need to have conversations with him.
Well, I don't think that we should be making comments about what he chooses to do with it. I mean, I do understand that we can't make a decision based on a financial reason if he's the one presenting the financial reason, but I don't think it's really for us to say that, you know, he could do this or that with the property. I mean, according to the staff analysis, it's a non-conforming lot of record, which means that he can build on it, and because it is non-conforming, it requires some relief from the code. I mean, when we look at the 6 criteria, the only one, to me, the application does meet all 6 criteria. The only one that I'm, you know, maybe waffling on is criteria 6. Variance will be generally consistent with the purposes, goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan and this code. I think he's met that. The second part of this criteria is, and will not adversely affect adjacent land. You know, the people who own the adjacent land clearly believe that it will affect them. But I also think that this is the minimum variance needed to develop on this property, which the owner is legally permitted to do.
I would say I tend to agree with that analysis. I think it's not asking for any more lot coverage. Maybe it's 33%. I believe him when he says they're only do a 2-story, 3-story would look odd anyway. I think there must be some sort of a step back there. And I think he's provided additional parking. I think his ability to convey this, John, would be mitigated if he said no to selling to somebody else. But I think he's sort of tried to do everything possible to make it. I don't know, Christian, the statement that there are no other, what they refer to as orphan lots, is that, because the Preston piece does concern me. Is there any way to verify that, or do you happen to know anecdotally, or are there a lot of developable 25-foot wide lots in Jacksonville Beach still?
In Jacksonville Beach, yes. In this particular plat, I don't think so, because again, as one of the neighbors had said, most of the houses are built on multiple lots. Just as a reminder, every decision you make is based on the criteria of the application, so nothing you do actually sets a precedent, because each case is considered unique.
Well, there's already a water problem there. If they had any pervious area, it's going to be more of a problem. Even if it's 33%, that's 33% more water trying to go somewhere.
Any further discussion?
I've done.
Okay, and please keep in mind, before I ask the clerk to do a roll call vote, that the motion on the floor is to deny the request. So keep that in mind. So if you vote yes, you are voting to deny the request. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Dan O'Malley,
No.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
No. Your request has been denied. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls DOA 22-10008, property address 1709 Riley Street. Motion to consider 34-337E1E for lot coverage of 42% in lieu of 35% maximum, and 34-337E1G for an accessory structure setback of 3 feet. in lieu
I'm
of
sorry, Owen. Can we please keep the conversation to the outside hallway as we call the next case, please?
For an accessory structure setback of 3 feet in lieu of 5 feet minimum, to allow for construction of a new swimming pool, pool deck, patio, accessory shed, and walkway in existing single-family dwelling.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have any ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had
None.
And I've had none. Would the applicant please be sworn in and give your testimony?
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Ian Al, ALDES, 1709 Riley Street.
Thank you. Can you please tell us the nature of your hardship at this property?
Sure. So I'm actually in the same neighborhood as we are in the process of building a pool, houses on a substandard lot. So we just asked what we'd like to add to the backyard as far as structures and lot coverage. We feel is the minimum lot coverage. The house was built by a builder 2 years ago, over and above the lot coverage limits set forth by tax beach. So the existing conditions does lay out, it's been a standard lot. The coverage that we're requesting may only be about 39% of the standard lot. Open to questions, but we're doing minimal pavers, roughly 120 square feet of pavers initially. We're asking for additional coverage for potential future pavers in the backyard, and then structures for the pool.
Where and what is the accessory structure? I've looked at the diagram, can't find it.
Can you repeat the question for me?
Where and what is the accessory structure?
Sure. So
is on your guys' slide on the right-hand side of the house, which would be the southern side of the home, there's going to be a slab for the pool equipment, which is, I believe, 3 by 10. So that'd be near the rear of the home. And there's a request for a 4 by 6 pad for shed for pool equipment.
Okay, so that's one right there. What's the other?
That's the pool equipment.
That'd be pool equipment, which I believe is 3 by 8.
That's also on the side?
Correct, because that's the southern side of the house.
Okay. And what is the larger structure in red?
So that's something we discussed potentially doing at a later date. When we met with Christian to kind of discuss what was permissible and not permissible, it was suggested to kind of ask what we might want in the future, to not ask for multiple variance requests. So current state, there is no near-term use for that space, but that would be really the only usable space where we could add seating and things like that in the backyard.
But you're not asking for that now?
The request is containing that ask now. I think one of the comments in the paperwork was that there's not a defined usage for it today. We won't be adding pavers if it's approved today, but we would likely be doing that in the future.
But there are many things that you might be able to do, like build a 3-story structure that's a...
I don't know if you can build a 3-story accessory structure, can you?
Technically, my setback wouldn't allow for it.
Accessory structures are limited to 15 feet in height.
That's what I thought.
And then the last part would be on the left, there's a set of 2 by 2 pavers kind of leading from our back porch to the kind of shallow end of the pool.
But those are things that you are asking for tonight.
Asking for, correct. Yeah, the backyard is actually, there's nothing in the backyard.
Christian, the 2 by 2 pavers don't count against lot coverage.
If there are certain distance apart, then they don't, right?
We limit it to 18 inches for pavers, and then 2 feet apart. When you get to 2 feet by 2 feet, then we count them as lot coverage. Basically, a minimal walking path is what we exempt. So those are
So
included.
because the pavers are 2 feet, they do count. If they were only 18 feet, they would not, as long as they were.
Right, yeah, so if they're 18 inches, we would exempt them. When they get larger than that, we count them as lot coverage.
Any questions for the applicant while Dan formulates his question?
Did you talk to the neighbors about this?
Just the 2 directly, so my northern neighbor, been with you guys a couple years ago, and had it's the same home, same lot, same problem. Essentially, we kind of cherry picked their rationale and the logic they used to lay out the lot.
And the other neighbor you spoke to?
Just in passing, she lives on the southerly side. She's only in town 6 months a year. She's only part-time resident. She lives half the year. So I just mentioned that
She lives half the
She
year.
lives half the year in West Virginia, so we mentioned that we are building, we're requesting a variance.
And what was her reaction?
She's, mind much of anything. Okay.
And so you purchased the home from a builder or from the original owner?
From the builders, we purchased them 2 years ago, my lot and the lot, the northerly lot to us was one, I guess it was a double lot. It was purchased, house was tore down, the lot was split in half. Yes.
Did you know when you purchased it that it was over the 35%?
No, I didn't even live in Florida, no.
Oh.
No.
I'm looking at your plan, trying to figure out where the 3 feet is on the setback, because I don't see it.
Sure. So originally the 3 feet on the southerly side was requested because the large 10 by 16 slab was, we weren't sure if we could fit that size without going past the
On
5 foot
the
setback.
shed side?
Pardon me?
Is it the shed side you're talking about?
Correct. Yeah. So we think we could potentially work with that. So I know the recommendation was to decline the 5 foot setback, and we're amenable to that. Yeah, so there'd be a very small section that would be within the 3 feet setback from that side.
Thank you for raising that question, Todd. It was curious too, I couldn't
Yeah.
find it.
So the pool equipment would require a pad for it to sit on, so, and that's just, I guess, if it's just the pool equipment, what is that distance on that pad only? Couple feet?
Maybe, like, what is the size of the pad, or
Yeah, like 2
the
foot
pad
pad
should be like
probably?
3 by 8,
Okay.
3 feet off the house, and the side yard is about 11 feet.
Okay.
But the diagram suggests that it is still 5 feet, 10 inches away from the property line.
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
he's saying
So
that.
for which you do not need a variance.
we do not need the variance, we had asked for it, and we were advised that it would probably be rejected. So we tried to see if we could figure out how to reconfigure the layout to accommodate the 5-foot setback.
So this one is with that already reconfigured.
Correct.
So the proposed plan that we're all looking at is what it would be built if we do, as the staff report suggested, deny the setback portion of the request.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I thought it was denied the travel paved.
Well, he's saying it would have been because they originally asked for that, but then they reconfigured the plan.
Yeah, so we made the change to the 5-foot, the, moving this last submitted our paperwork. and
Yeah,
it was
that's why
recommended
this
to leave
now
the paperwork
says
as is.
510.
Yeah.
But we can still, I mean, it's still in the request, so it's still something we can consider if we want to. But if we approve only the portion of the request that staff has recommended we approve, then the end result will be that.
That's perfect.
Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
No.
All right, you can be seated for now. And I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speakers cards?
No speakers cards and no postcards.
Okay, then I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 22-100088 in part for the lot coverage of 42% and deny the motion for the accessory setback of 3 feet. As it fails to meet the standard of special condition and circumstances to result from the action of the applicant.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I think it's clear that he wants the setbacks and that he really doesn't need the accessory, I'm sorry, he wants the lot coverage but not the accessory setback.
I think that works.
Yeah, and I think the site plan is very reasonable. I like that they, did the sort of spaced pavers, even though it does come against their lot coverage. It's just nice to see, really taking into consideration the minimum usage.
I'm just surprised they didn't show it.
It's true. Yeah.
Points for us.
Yeah, points for honesty. Any further discussion? Okay, can we have a roll call, please?
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Dan O'Malley,
Yes.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your application has been approved as amended. Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 22-100089, property address of 608 Beach Boulevard. Motion to consider 34-343E3B for a corner side yard setback of 7 feet in lieu of 10 feet minimum. 34-343E5 for lot coverage of 94% in lieu of 85% maximum. 34-377 for 15 parking spaces in lieu of 47 spaces required. 34-425B1 for no landscape buffer in lieu of 5 feet required. 34-425C1 for no internal landscaping for a parking area in lieu of 1 island for 10 spaces required to allow for renovation of an existing packaged liquor store.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have any ex parte communication on this agenda item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
None.
Okay. Would the applicant please be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
John Kelly, 6300 Hazeltine National Drive, Orlando, Florida, 33782.
Thank you. And before I ask about the hardship at this property, I noticed that you are not listed as the applicant or agent.
I am the owner's representative. I am the engineer of record, and Phyllis Fitzpatrick, I guess, is the applicant.
Is
So
that
I'm
right?
speaking on behalf of ABC.
Okay. Can you please describe the nature of the hardship at the property?
Well, the nature of the hardship was perfectly described. We've got a corner setback as, I guess, let's start at the beginning. The building is not square to Beach Road, Beach Boulevard. And so it causes hardships in several different ways. The first is the corner on the northeast side is encroaching. It's not within 7 feet of the property. The actual picture you have up there, lines are, I guess, approximate. You've really got a little bit more room right there than shown. Then we want to have that a 7-foot setback on that corner instead of 10. The lot coverage is, we're proposing to have 94% instead of 100%. And in lieu of the 85% that's required. There are actually, on the new layout, there's only room for 15 parking spaces, and we have 47 required, but there are another 13 that are being used at this time and will be used that are partially in the right of way. We ask for no landscape buffer in lieu of the 5-foot required, and we're adding landscaping and green space inside the property with landscape islands. And then in lieu of the 1 island for 10 spaces required to allow for renovation of an existing package store, we're putting landscape island in there, 1 for 10. So basically what we're looking at is a reduction in a side setback or a corner setback in the northeast corner from 10 to 7.5 or 7 feet, and then reduction in parking spaces and a reduction in the amount of impervious area.
Are you saying when you talk about a reduction of parking spaces on northeast corner, you're saying they're going to have fewer spots up there? Well, you're talking in terms of the total project, you want to have fewer parking
In
spaces?
terms of the total project. And do y'all have the ability to put the proposed plan up, or is this the only sketch that you have? It is. Okay, that's a better view of what is going on. As you can see, the parking, we've switched to the front, and then we're going to still utilize, as you can see, as possible, those on the east side of the building. And basically, all that we're doing is enclosing the existing drive-through for storage, and we're resurfacing the parking lot and beautifying the building. So it's going to be a much more attractive store, and I guess the aesthetic value is worth its weight in gold for this store. And I guess the circulation will be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the idea of making it more aesthetic is good. My concern is that I was there at 11 o'clock in the morning yesterday, so before very many people were impaired.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw somebody take that corner off of Beach Boulevard at the northeast and come very close to hitting a truck that was backing up from one of those small parking spaces. And my concern would be that if either one of them had been impaired at that hour of the day, that there would have been an accident at that point.
We don't have any specific accident data on there, on this particular
Mhm.
slide, but I understand your concern. But I think that it's gonna be that way, whether it's in the right of way or not, because of the existing travel ways are what they are. And so, you know, you need to look backwards when you're backing up and when you're turning a corner. You gotta be a little bit defensive.
John, I was there a little later than that, when the ink factory was starting to, you know, that there's a large new brewery behind you, and they were starting to occupy a lot of those parking spots. This was maybe 3 o'clock. So those are the parking spots on, what is that?
The east side,
Right, on the east side.
right?
And to your point, John, that's a pretty narrow drive lane there,
It is.
to park on both sides. And then I guess the third, I couldn't find the landscaping item.
If you look on the back and the rear of,
Back.
well, let me just go to it so I can point it out specifically for you.
While he's looking for that, Christian, the spots that they're referring to, are those not the spots that are referenced in the staff report that are not technically part of this property's private parking because they're partially in the city right of way, so this does not count for their parking at all?
That is correct.
Right, yeah, we can't count these for 2 reasons. One, they are partially in the right of way, and 2, they don't meet the standards for commercial parking where you can't back into a right of way. So neither, under both circumstances, they wouldn't qualify as on-site parking. The parking spaces to the north are technically in the DOT right of way, but they've been granted a permit historically for that. It's worth noting, I don't know if we covered this, but they are reversing the parking up here and making this a one-way, which would help, I think, with some of the traffic circulation issues there.
But I guess I just mention it because it seems like the two concerns that have been brought up are both regarding the parking on 6th Street.
Yeah, that is 6th Street.
And I just wanted to confirm that those are not really being factored in here because they're not technically their parking spots.
Right, the variance assumes that you're not counting these parking spaces.
Right.
And then back to your original
Yes.
question,
Got it.
where is the landscape island? If you look in the northeast corner of the parking that's adjacent to the building, there's a little triangular piece right there that we're using as landscape, right next to the ramp.
It looks like the building was actually the northeast corner.
I mean northwest, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Mike, I'm sorry, get mine.
I just was noticing that the corner, John, of the building appears to be in public right of way, doesn't it?
It appears that way, but it's actually not.
No, okay, I trust you.
That's why I asked y'all to show that one. But see, there you go. That shows right there in the upper right-hand corner of the building, over the drive-through. You can see the dash line. That's 7 feet right there to the property.
So there's an existing pillar right here, and that's the property line there, so it's just inside that.
That's correct.
Can you speak at all to the current use of parking spaces? Typically, when we hear requests for variances and relief from parking, and obviously there's extenuating circumstances here because this property was developed long before the Land Development Code mandated a certain amount of parking spaces, but is there any information you can give us about the parking situation at this store that might help us understand why granting a variance this extreme would be acceptable?
Yes, there actually is. Having done close to 100 ABC 5-line spirits, we've run into this a lot, where the normal building requirement varies between 3 and 5 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. ABC, of course, has a unique business where it's limited by the hours of operation. It's limited by the age. It's limited by several different factors. With that limitation, the parking, this standard required parking between 3 and 5 per 1,000 is usually much greater than what is required. And when I say usually, it's at some points, we have events, and I don't anticipate events at this store, and if we do have an event, we would arrange for off-site parking or shuttling or something of that. In normal business hours, we can get by with a minimum amount of spaces, and I'm sure if anyone's familiar with driving by the ABC, there's never a lot of cars in there, and it's a very quick turnover, so people go in, know what they want, and then they come back out, so the smaller amount of spaces works fine.
Thank you.
The addition of that, the brewery is gonna push, I see, and I don't know who's in charge of striping public right of way, but it's concrete on shatter there. I wonder why they don't add parking there, not for us.
It's in the right of way, it's public works.
Let me talk to David now.
Yeah.
Because it sure seems like they could use it. That white area there, that's, to the, I guess, the west, it says concrete on it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why it's white and the rest is gray.
Just to demonstrate that it's concrete instead of asphalt.
Oh, I see. And could you not add a couple of perpendicular spots there?
There's not room to have the right maneuverability. You could, are you talking about parallel spots? You need a 10-foot spot, and it's going to affect your circulation. Could we do it? Not to something that would benefit the building, nor something that I would feel comfortable in doing unless I really looked into it real close. And we looked at it long enough to just say that let's not do it because of, as I explained earlier, the limited parking that is usually required at one of these stores, and what was provided.
And the number of parking spaces that are being requested as part of the variance, and I apologize if this is in the staff report and I just didn't see it, is that the number of spots that you currently have? Or are you adding or taking away spots?
We're eliminating a couple of spots, and the reason is because we're going to angle parking instead of 90-degree parking, and we are coming down two spaces.
What was the, is it because
Not,
you're
yeah, not
doing it to
counting,
one
being
way?
able to count the right of way, the spaces in the right of way, one of the spaces along 6th Street.
But I meant the decision to change to angled versus 90-degree, is that just because you're changing the parking lot to one-way
That's correct.
traffic?
That's correct. For safety is what we're looking at,
Okay.
for circulation and for safety.
I know there's a sidewalk there on Beach, but it's so, sure would be nice to just have a 3-foot strip with some landscaping running up against the front of your building there. Is there any way you could?
If we were to do that, the 3-foot strip, we wouldn't meet ADA as far as the width of the sidewalk goes, that's up front, that abuts the building, and
No, I'm sorry, I'm talking about on
on 6th,
your northern property line adjacent to the city right away on Beach Boulevard. There's a sidewalk there. It'd just be nice if you could.
That's not on their property.
Yeah, right.
that's on the DOT right away. Are we looking 6th Street?
That's not their property.
This is Beach Boulevard.
Yeah,
Yeah,
their
this is
property
your-
line only goes up to here.
Correct, this is what I'm talking about. They could add a 3-foot thing, just like Wonderbird and some of your other neighbors will just.
Would you mind if I came
That's-
up and saw what you were drawing?
So I think that's right in the middle of where people would be ingressing into the lot. That's exactly where people would have to drive in to get into this parking spot, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Oh, I see, okay, I'm sorry.
And I don't know who this is the better question for, but can somebody repeat what was mentioned about the DOT parking spaces? You said they're permanently deeded. Did I mishear that?
No, it's probably a revocable permit, but they were at some point allowed to put parking there. A number of these properties along Beach Boulevard have similar approvals, including the shopping center where the World of Beer is going to go. They have the number of parking spaces and drive aisles that are actually in the right of way. So it's pretty common along Beach
Okay,
Boulevard.
so just the paved surface is DOT right of way, and they have at some point gotten permission to add lines for parking spots in that paved
I
area.
imagine that the applicant originally, who was before ABC, did the work, but it is technically, much like the driveway aprons we do for residential or in the right of way, they give a revocable permit. It's the same thing here. It's DOT's right of way, so you're limited to what they approve you to do. And this is probably a legacy that goes back 30 years or more.
Gotcha.
More.
And so that, parking area will not change as part of this?
Other than the striping reversal that they're showing.
Right.
I have no questions.
Any other questions? All right, then you can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing. Do we have any speaker cards?
We do not have any speaker cards, and we don't have any correspondence.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak on this item? And if so, please fill out a speaker's card before you leave. Okay, hearing none. Did you have an additional comment
Yes,
to make
yes, I
before I
did.
close the public? Okay.
Thank you.
You can come back.
I don't know if you have in your package what the new store will appear to be. Do y'all have that?
Yes, yes.
That is what you will be seeing now instead of, or in the future, instead of what you see now. So I think from an aesthetic point of view and the trending situation that you have in Jack Beach and you will continue to have, this will be a great addition. So just wanted to make sure y'all knew that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 22-10089. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request is met on the standards for variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
This parking issue is one where we saw at Beach Bowl, and Christian, I believe it was explained to us at that time that you can park there, but it doesn't really count towards your parking. Is that right?
If the parking is designed properly, we typically count it because DOT's allowed to be there. The issue with this particular project is
But
that,
the DOT can come in and say, hey, we gotta use this. And we gotta
right, in which case then they would, potentially have a parking deficit. But typically, if they have to do utility work or we have to do utility work, they restore it afterwards.
With the parking, okay, so the minimum development parking standards, it's listed as other professional or business offices. Is that the usage with the least number of spaces required?
I think that's just a typo. The 1 to 200 is correct. This would be considered a retail, sorry. Yeah, so
Because I know
actually
sometimes-
professional office is 1 to 300, so it's a lesser standard, but 1 to 200 is correct.
Okay, yeah, because I know sometimes there's, if the business is, ambiguous or there's not a direct usage that's outlined in the code, that sometimes we, planning has to choose the next closest one, and so I just wanted to make sure that this is the one with, I guess, the lowest burden, because, I'm inclined to approve based on the person who spoke on behalf of the applicant, and, I've never seen more than 2 or 3 cars parked there at a time. But for a regular retail space that has a different clientele or business model, the standard, that this amount of reduction might be tricky.
So this would fall under what we generally classify commercial uses as commercial, not uses not specifically listed. So it's not something unique like a doctor's office or a restaurant. And that standard is 1 to 200. So that would apply to virtually any retail store or grocery store or anything like that in the city. You would treat it the same as any retail store.
I think to your point, it's pretty transitory. People are in there, they hit their beer line, and they leave.
Yeah.
It's not like they sit there for meals.
Right, it's not like Walmart where they're going in for 45 minutes and Jason mentioned, there's an age limit, so that kind of already knocks out at least, some population of drivers. And it is a very significant reduction from the required number of spaces, but it is essentially the same number of spaces they have now, and they don't even use all the spaces they have now, so reducing it by 2, I think they still, at least, just anecdotally from my observations, I don't think that they'll all be used. And then from there, I know it's been mentioned, the new brewery that opened up back there, I know that they do generate a lot of parking traffic, but if we're limiting this just to the actual spaces that are for this business, not anything that's in the right of way, then, that's up to ABC to enforce it, basically, that people from the brewery aren't parking in their private spots.
And they seem to have made the parking lane a little safer by making it one way, which is good. And I think the building will look a lot better.
Any further discussion? All right, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Dan O'Malley,
Yes.
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Todd Smith,
Yes.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your application has been approved.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we call the next case, please?
Board calls BOA 22-100092, property address 1201 3rd Street North. Motion to consider 34-377 for 6 on-site parking spaces in lieu of 14 required to allow for construction of a second-story office space addition and a third-story auxiliary dwelling unit to an existing 1-story office building.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak once we open the public hearing. Does any board member have ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
None.
None? Okay. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Does not appear to be here.
So what do we do?
You can choose to vote on the item, or you can defer it, and we can ensure that he is here for the hearing.
I move that we defer it until the next available space.
Second.
That be the last referral of the evening.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of deferral? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Can we call the final case, please?
Board calls BOA 22-100093. Property address 983 2nd Street South. Motion to consider 34-340 E3C1 for a front side yard setback of 7 feet in lieu of 20 feet required. 34-340 E3C3 for a rear yard setback of 16 feet in lieu of 30 feet minimum to allow for construction of 2 new multifamily dwellings and to address existing nonconformities.
Thank you. As a reminder, each member of the public will be given 3 minutes to speak when we open the public hearing. Does any board member have any ex parte communication on this item?
I've had none.
I've had none.
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 And I've had none. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in and give your testimony?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Kathy Stearns, 983 2nd Street South, Jazz Beach.
Thank you. And can you please tell us the nature of your hardship at this property?
Okay, well, I purchased the property 27 years ago, and at that point, it was an abandoned derelict structure, zone multifamily. Its original use had been a store and 2 rental units. Over the years, I've improved it to 3 rental units, and I, as the owner, occupy the 2nd floor unit, and there are 2 smaller rental units on the ground floor. to bring the existing structure to 3 stories and change the existing structure, which is now a 3-unit, to a 1-unit owner-occupied unit, which will meet the city code requirements. In doing this, I will create 6 designated parking spaces, and I will include a 2-unit, 3-story separate structure in the rear yard. So the 2 units that are now on the ground floor will be in a separate structure in the backyard. All of this will enhance the neighborhood, and it will have an appealing exterior. The 2 hardships that I face is I need to, in order to do this, I need to build into the rear setback, and I also need to add a 3rd level to the existing structure's footprint. Only by approving these 2 variance requests can I achieve the city's parking requirements for each unit, the impervious requirement for the entire project, and this actual city building code requirements for each of the 3 units. All right, so hardship 1, my request is for that rear setback. On July 20th, my builder and I've been trying to do this since 2010. I've come a couple of times. I came last year, and because I need to improve my property. It was built in 1950, and it needs major work, and none of the units really comply with today's city code. I mean, it was built in the 50s. I've done the best I could, and I really want to step up and make everything legit. So my builder and I, John Hanna, met with the building superintendent and the city planner on July 20th regarding the plans we had in place to build our plan. And at that point, the plan was to build the 2 units, attach it to the existing structure. So I would have my 1 unit so I could have room to live in garages below, and we were going to attach the 2 units to that existing structure. We had a plan to do that. But then we were advised by the city planner and the building superintendent that there is now a flood zone designation that runs right in through the rear of my backyard, so that plan was scrapped. Because of this flood zone designation, whatever I build back there has to have a higher elevation than the existing structure. So whatever I build back there can't be attached or connected to the existing structure because of the elevation issue and because of the flood zone designation. So given the hardship flood plan, the city advised me that I should go down because I did have a true hardship and asked for a variance of 16 feet on that back setback in lieu of the 30 feet that's required in order to allow for the separation between the current structure and the 2 new unit structures that I plan to build. So that's one hardship. I mean, and now the second hardship has to do with my primary structure and turning it into 1 unit and having it for my family who consists of 4 adults. So the structure, as I said before, was built in 1950s. It was an existing multifamily zoning. It's been a multifamily building for years, since I bought it and when it was built. However, the existing structure, it conflicts with today's setback requirements on the south side, the east side, and the west side of the property lines. So that's one hardship. The second is the lot itself is 50 feet wide by 125 feet deep, and so it's 6 6,250 square feet, and that size is considered substandard for a multifamily lot, so that's another hardship. Then the third is, the city code requires living space for a 3-bedroom, the minimum is 1,100 square feet. So I can easily achieve that on the 2 new units, but on this primary unit, my plan, and the only thing I really can do for parking is to have the garage on that ground floor. You know, I don't have room in the front because I'm like 8 feet off the setback, line, so I don't have room to put any parking on the south side. I'm on the line, basically, on the west side. So on the sides, there's no room for parking either. So my only place to put parking for the primary unit that I would live in and achieve the 2 cars per unit requirement would be on the ground floor. So, in doing that, I will lose living space. So, I calculated how much living space I would actually have if I were given the variance that I'm requesting, and that is to build a 3rd floor on the primary footprint, not have to do setbacks just on the 3rd floor. So if I get approved and I'm able to build on the footprint of my 3rd floor, then I would be able to come up with a square footage of 1,878 square feet. I get that number after taking out the garage, which is not livable space, after taking out an internal stairway and space for an elevator, and actually after taking small areas out for 2 front porches on the east side. So I come up with 1,878 square feet. That would be enough room for me to build my 3-bedroom unit on the primary structure. However, if I'm not approved, then that 3rd floor setback would take away 711 square feet on the unit 1, and therefore leave me with 945 square feet total, which would not only allow me to build a 1-bedroom structure as far as the city is concerned. So that's my hardships there. I would like to have room for my family and a 3-bedroom. I think that's reasonable, requesting that in the primary unit. Oh, and one thing I didn't mention is right now the primary structure is like an L shaped. So in order to allow for the separation, you know, of the primary structure and the 2 new units, due to the flood zone, I'm gonna have to take away part of the existing structure that's like the L. So it would like square it up, so I would have enough room for, the separation of the primary structure, so I would lose square footage there as well. So, and that's counted in the 1878.
That's the pad on the left there, you need building on the right.
Yeah, that's my, that little, where you just put the laser, that's what I'll demolish, because I'll need that space for the separation of the primary structure and then sorry to be repetitive, it's confusing to me.
Are the parking places, the 6 parking places, are they going to be built under the building structures?
Well, I made a little, I made this, if I can hand it to you, it's a little clearer.
You can submit it through the clerk,
Okay.
and she'll disperse it.
Yeah. So, as I talked, as I said before, there will be 2 parking spaces in the garage under the primary structure, which is the one that is south. And then on the other new addition, there will be a 1-car garage. If you can see the driveway, that's a 1-car garage. And then I was informed by the city that, because I was just going to have the other parking space outside of the garage, but then I was told that it needs to be 17 feet. So, according to the drawing, I'm able to put one parking space on each side of that new addition, there and there. And I can get my 17 feet that way, and I'm also 10 feet from the alley. So that was a good, it's like putting a puzzle together, quite honestly, but that worked for parking. I also put like some little drawings on the back of each, because I've been doing the impervious percent calculation. I took into account the pads for the air conditioning units, which, so on that piece of paper I have I'm at 62.9%, so I'm under the impervious percent requirement, so I didn't have to ask for that. But I really tried to make everything work on this plan.
So in the staff report, it's noted that what's proposed in the packet that we received, that your project upon completion, if completed as proposed, would be 57%. So you're getting to 62.9% by adding
That is
these
additional
extra two
parking.
parking spaces?
Yep, and the pads for the air conditioning units in the back, which are like 3 by 4 each times 3. And that's on that sheet of paper under the impervious calculation.
And are those required by code?
Yes.
So is that an error that was left out of the original proposal, or was it just?
It was my error, because I thought, like I said, I thought that my little driveway area was gonna be that second parking place, but the code says it has to be 17 feet wide. So that's why I had to go outside, so that was my error.
Well, I guess it's not really an error, because she's not asking for additional lot coverage.
Right.
So she's still, regardless, she's still under the minimum, or the maximum, so.
Correct, and there's nothing that requires that the AC be on the ground. It could be on the roof, especially if it's in a floodplain. That's not uncommon. So.
Okay.
Can't you just do gravel parking there instead of paving?
But she's still under the minimum lot coverage, so it doesn't really matter.
Plus, you would have to get approval through this body to do gravel parking, because we require paved parking.
Oh.
But lot coverage isn't part of the request, it's just.
Yeah, I was just trying to make everything work as best I could.
It looks like they'll lose 2 spots on second public parking.
Well, I'm
Maybe
gonna
one.
provide 6. Right now, I don't have any designated parking. We're parking in the city's
The
right
public
away.
will lose- The public will lose parking on those 2 spots that are on second to accommodate the 2 curb cuts. That's not true. Maybe
Well,
they
there
say
is an
one. There's an aerial that reflects that.
Yeah, there is an existing driveway, already there, but yes, I believe you're correct that, those 2 spots, those 2 public spots would be lost. I didn't go there.
I believe in reviewing the packet that it looks like in 2003, you requested relief from the rear yard setback for 2 additional dwelling units, and that request was denied.
Yes.
I know it's been like almost 20 years, do you recall at the time what the sort of rationale was?
Well, I didn't know there was no flood zone back there then, but I had my neighbor to the east come up, and he said that his wife couldn't sunbathe in the backyard if I built it, if I used some of that setback to build something. Since then, we've had a apartment complex in back that is 35 feet high, all for a few lots, that's directly to north, and so that's why, they took into account his opinion, and that's why I was told it was denied. Yeah, I've been trying to improve it for a while.
And are there other 3-story homes in the questions?
I'm done.
Oh, did you talk to your neighbors?
I did. And I had talked to them last year too. And I have, the neighbors that are directly around me, the neighbor to my east, he's here to talk tonight. And the neighbors that are immediately to, the south, they also signed letters in approval. But I do have some neighbors that don't really live, close to me. In fact, they can't really see my property unless they go out in the street and look down the road. But they oppose me, and I don't know why. I mean, I have rentals, and right now those rentals are being used as Airbnbs. When I was at the last meeting, they came up and they said, we shouldn't let her do anything because she's using those rentals as Airbnbs. We shouldn't let her, we should not. And that they use the whole, but this is a multi-family zoning. This is the Jacksonville Beach. It's a very public area. And I have a right to rent properties out. I've rented the properties out ever since I owned it. I improved it greatly when I first bought it. And, I managed my properties very well. In my own opinion, but, maybe I have different opinions. I did talk to the neighbors.
You can be seated for now, and I will open the public hearing.
I have my builder with me. As well.
If you have any questions for me or anything I should do.
Does anybody have any questions of the builder, because we would need to have him sworn in to address anything? Okay. If something comes up after if she wishes to address any of the public comments made, we may choose to go no at that time, so thank you. Do we have any speakers for us?
We do. Greg Phipps.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name and your address.
My name is Gregory Phipps, 127 10th Avenue South. I am her neighbor that she just referenced directly east of her. So just want to share a few comments. Yes, I'm in support of what she's proposing here, but just a couple of commentaries. She is a very good neighbor. She is an on-site manager, so we've owned that property for about 3 years now, and she's had rental properties on the ground floor. She's always on site and managing them. She does it as a good job. She mentioned her kids, they are on site, and she has grandkids that come and visit regularly as well. So it's there's a lot of family members that are around there regularly. She maintains her property very well too. So grass is cut in the backyard. They have a number of flowers and plants and trees and some garden that they're always maintaining. And then I know she wants to add the two buildings to her, and then she wants to change that existing property, which I think is good. It would remove some of the short-term rentals at the bottom and then move them over to the backside into the two buildings that she's proposing. And then I also like that on the ground floor she changed some of the parking there to add the garage. So all in all, I am in favor of this, and those are just comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
David Robald.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and your address.
David Rowold, and the property is 123 10th Avenue South. So we are, right next to Greg, on the other side, further east. That property's been in our family since about 1899. And yeah, we're here opposing it. This exact request came before the board last year. You recall, I provided a packet for you. Hope you guys had a chance to read it. Came before the board last year in April. What she's requesting today is, and the statements that she made today are no different than they were last year when it was presented to the board. The difference is that now this is actually more aggressive in terms of wanting less setbacks on both sides. This has been denied twice now, once in 2003 when she asked for a 20-foot setback, once in 2021 when she asked for a 24-foot setback in the rear. She's now asking for a 16-foot setback. To the extent that she was granted any kind of variances in 2019, those were to cure nonconformities and to allow the property, to make the structure on the property to be built in the event of a hurricane. It was not granting of conformities as a general variance for the entire lot. This request now is 8 feet down the eastern side, where last year it was 10 feet down the eastern side. This year it is 16 feet on the rear, where last year it was 24. Now she's asking to build, and this was brought up again at the last meeting, the front setback of 7 feet. She's asking to build a third-story building, or a third story out to 7 feet. And that was not the purpose of the granting of the original variance. She should be building third floor to the proper setbacks. And that's the point of all this. She doesn't need a variance. She can build to code. There's plenty of room. To the extent that there's any peculiar nature of the property, it's the fact that her existing structure is pushed so far to the south. It gives her a lot more room than other people would normally have on this property. She can build back there. You can see how much room she has. She can build within code. To the extent so I disagree that there's a special condition. The special condition helps her to build the code. It allows her for proper setbacks. In terms of it being something that she created, this is the design that she wanted. She can change her design. She should be building or designing her project to fit the land, not conforming the land to fit her design. As she stated, she's a superhost for Airbnb. You will hear other people come up that will talk about the fact that the parking situation is bad. She's removing 2 parking spaces on 2nd Street. We have had overflow problems. We've had
I'm
noise
sorry to
problems.
interrupt you. Your 3 minutes
My
have
3 minutes are
expired,
up.
but thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Sarah Robald.
Do you want to speak?
No, she's not. So, sorry.
And neither did my father.
She full reviews?
Well, I'm sorry, Sarah Robald did not want to speak. She's opposed to the agenda. Robert Robald did not want to address the board, but is opposed to the agenda. John Swindle.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Please state your name and your address.
115 10th Avenue South, Jacksonville Beach, Florida. That would be 3 houses up to the east.
And your name?
Excuse me,
And can you state your name for the record, please?
John Swindell.
Okay.
Basically, I'm worried about the parking situation. We're going through a renovation of the streets now. And I'm afraid that if we add more parking, it's going to exacerbate the problem we already have. The second thing I'm somewhat worried about is the number of units. I would like to see a plan for the existing 3 units being changed into a 1 unit. I don't have a problem with Airbnbs. I don't have a problem with short-term rentals, but I do have a problem with congestion on the lot. I'm assuming that the current zoning only allows 3 units per lot. Is that correct? Is it JMR2?
It's RM2, and yes, they can have a maximum of 3 units based on the square footage of the lot.
All right, well, that's one of my concerns. Other than that, have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vicky Swindell does not wish to address the board, but is opposed to the agenda. Eric Felton does not wish to address the board, but is opposed to the agenda. We have a package of correspondence of emails, 4 opposed and 3 in favor. I'm just reading some of those.
Sure.
Paul and Cecilia Borjali, 15920 Southwest 87th Avenue, Palmetto Bay, Florida. They own Unit C at 820 2nd Street South, Jacks Beach, and they oppose the variance. The next one is from Kurt Clemens, 1002 2nd Street South. He opposes the variance. The next one is from Eric Bruder. He does not give his address, but he is not opposing the variance. The next is a letter. Oh, this is all part of one package. Sorry. This is a 5-page letter signed by Robert Revold, Sarah Revold, David Revold, Robert Revold, who addressed the board. And the next one is from Kathy Sturms, 983 2nd Street South. She's in agreement with the variance request. Sorry, that was signed by David Gatto, who's in approval of the request, 138 10th Avenue South. The next one is from Lisa and Greg Phipps. We heard from Greg Phipps, and he is in favor. And the next one is from Robert Riggins, 130 10th Avenue South, and he is in agreement with the variance request.
Ms. Stearns, would you like to come back up and address any of the comments made?
Sure. Just quickly, I guess David Roval, that's part of that family that's against me, that's 2 houses east. They can't see the house at all unless they come out into the street. But he said that I was asking for the very same thing as I did a year and a half ago, and that's not true because we did go to the planning committee in July, and that's when the flood zone was pointed out. So we were trying to build, given what the last variance board didn't approve, we were trying to attach it to the structure and not use that rear setback. So we really did try to do that. But our hardship really lies in the fact that we found out about that new flood zone designation that is in the rear yard, so we absolutely cannot build attached. So this is a completely different hardship that was not brought up at the last meeting. Also, I'm only building 3 units. I have 3 units, I'm building 3 units, and I'm providing 6 designated parking spots, whereas now I don't have any at all. So, that's it.
Where do you and your tenants currently park?
There's the right-of-way on 10th Avenue South that just lies along everyone's property that's on 10th Avenue South. And you guys are going to be doing some work on that and creating new public parking. We have a plan for that already. But right now, that's where we park. We park in that, and so do a lot of my neighbors as well. They
So
take advantage.
it's actually gonna take cars off of the street, and everybody's parking on the street right now for your 3 units.
Everyone's parking in the right-of-way.
In the right of way. Okay.
Yeah, not on the street.
Okay.
They're not taking up the public parking because, you can't, depend on it.
But those are not your spaces, though.
No, those are not
Spaces.
my spaces.
I
no.
guess one of my
to have one parking, space underneath each unit, and then one parking space.
No, I'm sorry, I appreciate that. When I was gonna say you're gonna have a two-car garage facing,
10th Avenue South.
right, so
Yeah,
that
'cause-
will eliminate two on the public right of way where people want to go to the beach or whatever could possibly. work.
Well,
That
I
would be
mean,
your
the public
preferred
doesn't really park on my right of way.
Doesn't she have the right to a parking place?
Hmm?
She has the right to a garage.
No, no, I don't doubt that, I'm just saying, just.
Sorry, let's not entertain, unsworn comments from the public, sorry.
I did have a question about, from one of you, either John or you.
Why don't you go ahead and come on up and be sworn in, just to be safe.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm? Please state your name and your address.
John Hanna, 3250 Isabella Boulevard, Jacksonville Beach.
So the minimum square footage on a three-bedroom is 1,100 square feet, is that correct?
Let me check.
Because I'm trying to figure out if you're going to put, if you, to this gentleman's point
Right.
earlier, the third floor will be 7 feet off of her property line. And I'm just trying, and the reason I guess was stated to that
It
would
would follow-
achieve your minimum square footage for a house, but it
Yeah.
seems like the footprint is 38 by,
We're removing the piece in the back.
right?
The L shape, which also reduces the size of the house, and we're just putting a third floor over that footprint that's there now.
The proposed site is 38 by 40, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I've got the calculations.
So that's
I'm looking at it.
1,200 square feet per floor minus the garage.
On the first floor, yes.
Right. So
But we
you're
took that-
way over the minimum.
Well, no,
We took out
I
further.
understand.
I have the calculation here.
Square foot per floor. You're way over.
I have the calculation for the floor.
Okay.
if you want to-
You can pass it through the clerk, please.
I guess where I was headed with that is if there was any room to move that third floor back to accommodate the appropriate 20-foot setback and
Yeah.
achieve the square footage.
I'll end up with what it says on that piece of paper, and I think it's like a little over 900 square feet, and that's,
If you take out all those stairs and the elevator.
Through the chair, can I just, there's another piece to this that's worth considering. Any renovation of an existing structure that trips the 50% requirement for the value of the structure would require them to bring all the nonconformities into compliance, which means whether they add a second floor or a third floor, they probably end up right back here looking for relief for that front setbacks, otherwise they couldn't renovate even the interior of the structure. So what they're asking to rectify are existing nonconformities. I imagine that even if they put a 900 square foot third story, they're going to be back asking for that front setback regardless. And to answer your question, a one-bedroom unit has to have 700 square feet, a two-bedroom unit has to have 900 square feet, and a three-bedroom unit has to have 1,100 square feet at a minimum.
I have a question. Did you ever entertain the idea of one unit instead of two on the extra lot you have there?
no.
And then putting the parking on the back side and then leaving the parking on the public side?
Well, I have 3 units, it's a multifamily.
I realize that, I'm just
Keep
saying.
with 3 units,
You're,
no.
you're still, the argument is you're trying to make something out of something else, that's why you're getting a variance, as opposed to making something work that works more realistically.
Well, I think it worked when we attached it, but due to the fact that they changed the flood zone, it runs through that, then we would have to bring all those units. Either we would lose the first floor on the 2 units that we build because they wouldn't conform with the flood zone, so they could not be inhabited. We could put parking there, but we could not put any kind of living space. So we would be restricted on that site. So by separating the 2, we're able to build the 2 buildings in the back at the proper elevation to meet those flood zones. And then, of course, the front building is what it is, but it's all going to be parking downstairs and no living.
What I'm asking for was done directly across the street from me. There is a 3-unit, 3-story structure on the same size lot I have, and the setback requests were given as well in 2004. So I'm really not asking for anything more.
In 2004?
Yeah.
2004.
we didn't want to do that with the alley because we've got that structure, the apartments right behind me. They're over their setbacks there, and for safety purposes in regards to fire engines and all of that, I was told that the city really didn't like to, if I could put the garages and the driveways coming off the second, that would be better than the alley. So that's why I didn't go with the alley.
Christian, sorry, this might be a better question for you, but the home is set further up to the front property line than its neighboring properties, right, the structure?
Correct, yeah, that 8 or 7 feet, whatever it is to the front wall of the building. So that is that 7 feet there. There was a variance granted before for a deck that was on the second floor, but it was specific to the deck. So it didn't grant that front setback for the main building.
And I'm looking, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm just not seeing it, but is there currently a variance for that existing nonconformity, or is it not?
No, but as you can see, there's a lot of variances with this. And we sat down and went through all of them, and that front setback had been requested previously, but had never been approved. And the only thing that had been approved was the encroachment for the deck, but not the building. So the side setbacks have been addressed for that structure in various forms in the past, but that front setback is still a nonconformity.
And the front setback that's requested in this variance is for the front of the home as it is now?
Correct.
And was the front of the home there when you, is that the same footprint as when you purchased the home?
When I purchased the home, the deck wasn't there, but we wanted the deck so that we could access the building, because the only thing that was there to access the building was on the east side, and it's pretty much a ladder.
I guess I'm just mainly asking, the general like brick and mortar footprint of the front of the building is the same as when you purchased it. You did not add on to the front,
Just
further encroaching into the front yard
Just the
setback.
porch.
Just the porch.
Right, and the stairs that go down in front.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Anybody else? All right, you could be seated. Is there anyone else in the audience who has not filled out a speaker's card who wishes to speak? All right. Please make sure you fill out a speaker's card before you leave. Yeah, you can hand it to the clerk and then you can be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and your address.
Kurt Clemens, 1002 2nd Street South, Jax Beach. I've already submitted a letter to you, but I just want to review it with you real quick. I know you didn't have time to read it real quick, but I could. My main concern with the proposed variance is the effect on the neighborhood. The proposed new building for 983 2nd Street South buildings are being built to be used only as short-term rentals for motels. Essentially, 2 new multi-unit built motel buildings will be constructed and dropped into our residential neighborhood. If we allow this, we will be starting a precedent for future short-term rental motel investors. Buy a home in Jax Beach and then build a motel in their backyard. Even if the owner pledges to turn these units into long-term rentals, there's no guarantee that they will not change them back to short-term rentals. What if the owner would sell the unit to another investor and he would in turn turn them into short-term units? I live on the corner, catty corner for Kerr, on 2nd Street South and 10th Avenue South. The corner already has reached a saturation point with the following 9 short-term rental motels. And I won't go through the addresses, but they're on the letter I sent you. Starbucks, Sun Deli Restaurant, and other strip mall businesses at 10th Avenue South already deal with high volume of people and car traffic for this area, which is just west, directly west of our building. The added volume of short-term rental tenants will Does anyone want to live around a large group of constantly changing unknown vacationers all the time? Dealing with the constant churning of motel guests coming in and out, quiet enjoyment should be the right of every property owner. While the decision on the specific requested variances rests with the board, I would respectfully urge you to consider how the approval of these variances will negatively impact our neighborhood today and possibly into the future. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
My memory is that the legislature passed a law that we cannot prohibit anywhere from having Airbnbs.
Yeah, actually, I just gave a talk to the code enforcement local group about this today. So yeah, the Florida legislature basically said that we can't ban short-term vacation rentals or regulate them by length of stay or number of days of stay. And we have to treat them like any other residential unit where they're allowed. So if it's a house, it can be rented as an Airbnb. If it's a multifamily unit, it can be an Airbnb. The only thing that we require is a registration and that they pay the requisite taxes in the county and state and city.
And it's not within the purview of this board to approve or deny a request based on whether there's speculation that the applicant may or may not be using the property for short-term rental.
It's an allowable use, and therefore they could do it right now without talking to you guys at all.
Right. Ms. Stearns, would you like to address the last comment that was made? If you just make sure you come up to the mic if you do.
The only thing I want to reiterate is that my property is multi-family zoning. It's not single-family home residential. That is a very public area there. On the other side of the street, a lot of those homes on the west side of Second are designated commercial even. And this house has been there since 1950. It's been a store in 2 units and now it's 3 units. So I'm just trying to enhance and improve my property. It'll be a beautiful project when I get done, and it's going to be, you know, something that's welcoming to the street. That's my goal.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now close the public hearing and bring the item back to the board for discussion. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve BOA 22-100093. Based on the testimony and evidence provided, the request has met the standards for a variance as outlined in section 34-286 of the Land Development Code.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? I have a question actually for Christian. So, with the two public parking spaces, the
Yes.
reason that those spaces would be eliminated with this proposed site plan is because they would need ingress and egress into the parking spaces from the street, essentially driving through what is now this public spaces. right?
Correct, yeah.
So
I
we
mean,
can't have public spaces there because then it would block in.
right, you'll see this pretty commonly. Anywhere there's not a driveway, they basically strike the parking space, and where there is a driveway, there isn't a space. Public Works is redoing a number of these side streets in this area for a big drainage project, and that's one of the things that they've done is kind of sat down with every property owner, street by street, to say, you know, these are the existing parking spaces, these are where your driveways are, and yeah, in essence, those 2 parking spaces may be lost, but they were put there because there's nothing there. Anyone who builds has a right to a driveway, so.
Okay. And I assume that there was not really, I mean, she had addressed the issue with the alleyway, but I assume that there wasn't any other practical place to put a driveway that wouldn't eliminate city parking.
Generally, we allow secondary access off of driveways. You can have primary access, off of alleys. You can have primary access if you have secondary access to the front street. There's no requirement one way or the other. I don't know if it would work the other way, it could work the other way.
Personally, I just think it's a little aggressive. I think there are other ways to design this, Todd's point, a single family, or putting one on top of the other with coming off the alley, or one ingress for parking. I just, the setbacks and the,
It's a little much for that one.
it's a little much.
This is the same issue that we had last year, you know, continues to be very aggressive for the size of this lot.
Through the chair, if it helps any, just for clarification, I did look up the 2019 variance, and it was approved for, again, 2 attached units that were very, very similar to what's proposed here, but were attached to the primary structure. So they could, in theory, do that if they could address the flood zone issues. It wouldn't be substantially different. So you'd have that as an approved right now.
Any further?
It's an approved right if it is connected to the main house.
Correct.
And can you just describe or kind of summarize briefly why having it connected versus not connected changes the...
It's a good question. So it's not terribly easy to see on here, but this line right here basically denotes the AE flood zone. Everything forward of this is the X shaded flood zone. The AE flood zone has requirements for elevating the structure above the base flood elevation level, which I think is 9 feet here. So it would have to be a foot above that, which would be 10 feet. If you renovate an existing structure beyond a certain percentage, you also have to mitigate that impact. And so, in essence, you would have to elevate the primary structure if you trip certain requirements. The current primary structure is not in the flood zone. The new structure will be. If you attach them, that new requirement would then apply to the primary structure and would have to be addressed. In essence, either elevating it or flood vents or redesigning it, engineering it differently, or unrealistically elevating the whole structure. By detaching it, it allows them to apply the flood zone standards to the new portion in the back without affecting what's in the front, which once they tear off this little bit here, will no longer be in the floodplain. So it is a complicated issue, but that allows them to do one without affecting the other.
But none of that is mitigated by the 20 feet going to 16 feet.
Well, the point is when they separate the two, it pushes those 2 new units further back on the property. If they're attached, then she can meet that rear setback. If they're separated, then that becomes a smaller space.
Any further discussion? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
John Moreland,
Yes.
Owen Curley,
Yes.
Dan Almali,
No.
Todd Smith,
No.
Alexi Gonzalez.
Yes. Your request has been approved. Planning Department report.
I am very close to having dates for the hearings in October for the land development code and comp plan discussions. You guys will be meeting with the planning commission. It is looking like you will be towards the end of the month. October. Yeah. We will be,
Can we please keep the discussion to the outside hallway while we finish our official business, please?
we will be launching a website soon through the consultant, which will have all the dates and information, and as the consultant does presentations, they'll be posted there as well. So once we get that launched, we'll have the dates finalized, and I'll let you guys know when that hearing will be. It will most likely be here, but depending on how some of the earlier meetings go for public turnout, we may end up at the Parks Department building over in Sunshine Park. But yeah, the hope is that we can have both boards meet at the same time with the consultant and then really dig into what your concerns and issues and stuff like that are with the land development code and comp plan. So hopefully by the next meeting I'll have that date for you. And that's it.
Thank you. September 20th, yes. 6 scheduled cases. Is there a motion to adjourn?